And week one of the 2024 NFL season is officially in the books. Welcome into the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. Your regular crew is back to break it all down. I'm Derek Rackley. That's Dave Archer, DJ Shockley. And unfortunately, we sit here after week one with a Falcons loss. They end up coming up short in this one to the Steelers, 18-10 at home. It looked like there was some promise at a point, and Shock, you and I were breaking things down at the halftime. They had the lead at that point, kind of needed to come out of the break and have a couple things go their way, and it didn't quite go that direction. So let's just kind of go ahead and dive into it, and let's kind of break this apart as we do on Falcons Audible, as we do as kind of we're all former players and analysts to some degree. And we'll try to bring as much analysis and opinions to this as we can and give everybody a little bit of flavor of what we saw in the game on Sunday. So Shock, let's start with the defensive side of the ball. Let's just give your overall assessment of the defense, maybe a couple things that stuck out, and then maybe if you want to go ahead and expand a couple of missed opportunities as well.
I think when you look at the totality of the game, you said this defense gave you a chance to win the ball game. This defense held the rope to say for a long period of the ball game. There were a couple short fields. There were some opportunities where the offense left you in some precarious situation because of turnovers, and we all saw that. I mean, that's, facts of the game. I thought the defense bowled their neck a few times. Now, of course, Pittsburgh is a team, and players on that side of the ball, they get paid just like the Falcons do.
Yep.
So they're going to make their share of plays. Pickens had a big play. I think the play before half was huge from Pittsburgh. Trying to get points on the board, and they roll left, and Pickens run the corner out to the backside, picks up a chunk yardage gain. They get points going into halftime. That's a big momentum swing going in, knowing that coming out that we're gonna get the football because the Falcons took it. Now you got another opportunity to kind of go 2 for 1. We talked about that at halftime.
Yep.
But this was a defense that at times was really stingy. There was a defense that got after the quarterback. I thought they did a really good job of changing the line of scrimmage at times. There were times where I think they had 7-8 tackles for loss in this game. They got to Justin a couple times. Grady Jarrett got to him by himself one time with a big-time sack. But you look at the totality of it, you force field goals, and you force long ones. It's not like they drove the field on you and got inside the red zone and it was inside the 10-yard line and, you bowed the neck. You bowed it way out. This guy Boswell, oh my goodness, this guy was kicking 50-yarders. Come on, he was kicking 55, 57-yarders. And sometimes you got to tip your hat to him. I mean, I think if you come into the ball game and you say, you know what, they're not going to score today. You feel pretty like score a touchdown today. You feel good about that.
Yeah, no question.
And you walk out saying, all right, I'll take that. They're kicking field goals all day. Yeah. Well, guess what? We're going to match that with touchdowns or our own field goals or whatever it may be. And you say you feel good about that. They're going to line up and kick a 57-yarder. Hey, good luck to you. You make it, kudos to you. So I thought the defense did a good job of keeping the Falcons in the ball game and giving them opportunities. You go and you think about all the missed opportunities. You lose the turnover battle, and you have an opportunity to go and actually still win this ball game considering everything that happened.
Yeah.
You got to give a lot of credit to the defense for holding that rope and giving you a chance.
Yeah, you're right, because especially playing at home, if you don't allow your opponent to score touchdowns, you should have a chance to compete in every game, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't be beat by a team that's just kicking field goals. Unfortunately, that was the case. And Arch, we found out right before the game was going to be Justin Fields at the 90-minute meeting when they announced that Russell was going to be out for the game. So you're thinking, okay, maybe you're going to get a little bit more quarterback run game than you do with Russell Wilson. And then he throws it 23 times and completes 17 of them, right? So even though it was 156 yards, he was fairly efficient. And you're thinking maybe with Justin Fields throw it 23 times, we got to get one. We got to get one or two, create a takeaway on defense, and we didn't get the interceptions. But where were some of the areas that you thought were strong and some of the missed opportunities defensively?
You wonder with the Justin Fields announcement of him starting, how much that potentially changed. You knew they had an idea what they want to do with both quarterbacks, right? So with Fields in the game, I need eyes on the quarterback. And so did that change how much I was going to play man coverage, how much I was going to hug? I needed to watch the quarterback to get out of the pocket. Now, Justin Fields still got out, and he ran for a couple first downs. But I thought you limited his ability to affect the game in the run game. He made a couple of nice throws in the pass game. He didn't hurt you in the pass game. Made a couple of nice throws. Pickens made a couple of nice plays. The former dog stepped the big time. Things that I loved about the game, Rack, was you gave up 3 plays of 15 yards or more.
Yeah.
I mean, that's winning football. If you're not giving up big chunks of yards, you gave up 279 yards of total offense. Now, when you begin to look at how they controlled the football, now the offense it was a liability here too because you weren't able to stay on the field. But they held the ball for 35 and a half minutes of the game. At some point, that's going to get you it's going to sap you. We talked about it. Early in the season, you don't have your game lungs. You can't suck it up. All of a sudden you're playing 50, 60 plays. You're kind of having sub. And I thought Jimmy Lake and the staff defensively did a really good job of rotating the front seven. But there's a group that's a second group, and there's a group that's a first group, and I thought they got a foothold in the run game. Now, they ran the ball 41 times for 3.3 yards a carry. Again, that's winning football, but it kept them in manageable down and distance situations where they converted 8 of 17 third downs, which kept them on the field. So that's an area that Atlanta's going to have to be better. You mentioned tackles for loss, 6 or 8 tackles for loss, which is great. Now you've got to make sure you win on those third down situations. You don't let them get – they converted a couple third and longs that you don't want them. So those are some of the areas that I thought you looked really good in. I thought there was a couple areas, third down and maybe shoring up the run game because make no mistake, you're going to see the run game on Monday night from the quarterback and from the running back, Saquon Barkley. So – but I thought that the defense, like Shock said, and I said hold on the rope the whole broadcast. So that was the way to do it. That's kind of what you do. The 5 of the 6 field goals were 40-plus yards. So to echo what Shock was saying, it's not like they were penetrating down deep in your territory and, we got to settle for 3. No, you forced them to settle for a long field goal. They played winning football on defense.
And I think that's one of the big differences, guys. We've lived and called college football games for years, and that's the difference that you get to the National Football League. You're going to play most teams that's going to have a kicker that is going to be able to knock those down almost like clockwork, right? So it's not like as a defense, yes, you think you won, but yet you're thinking, okay, well, maybe he's going to miss it. Maybe we're going to get our finger on it. Then he just drills a 50-yarder. I mean, look at the kid from Dallas just continuing to drill these 50- and 60-yard field goals.
What do you get, a 66-yarder they took off the board? Right. He was getting ready to. He was going to try one from 71, and they decided not to do it.
So like field goal kicking, that's the reason why these guys play for so long, because they're so good. And Arch, you talked about third downs was a huge story of the game, right? Pittsburgh comes in, they finish 8 of 17 on third down. I don't know if the numbers changed, but I know when we were playing, they used to always harp on winning football was 40% or more on third down, right? My quick math shows me that they're well over that number on 8 of 17, whereas Atlanta, 2 for 9 on third down. You talked about time of possession. That's the reason why. They converted on third down. They stayed on the field and ultimately got themselves into scoring range. It turned out to be field goal range, but credit to the Steelers, they put points on the board. So let's go ahead and flip it over to the other side. And I think this is probably where there's a little bit more disappointment, if you will, letdown, if you will. There was so much optimism around this offense, having Kirk Cousins, feeling since the first time since Matt Ryan in his heyday, Matt Ryan was still really effective, that we felt like, okay, we got a good chance to have some good balance in this game throwing the football. In the first drive, looked like there was some promise, right? Threw a couple throws, and I was like, we haven't seen one like that in a little while. But Coach Raheem Morris talked about in his post-game press conference, is like when you lose the turnover margin in the National Football League, it's extremely difficult to win games.
Turnover margin and penalties. I think that was the biggest part of this ball game. We could point to the decision-making that's going to happen in the ball game. I mean, obviously you want your quarterback to make better decisions. You want him to throw it to our people, of course. But I think you were hamstrung a lot of the times with penalties. And you just mentioned third down. Biggest part of the ball game, 2 of 9. Think about how many opportunities in the ball game where you have a good run or you have a good catch, and then boom, here comes an illegal formation. Here comes a holding call. Here comes something that puts you behind the chains. And we're talking about playing against a guy in wide over there. We're playing against, all these guys who can freaking come off the football. And when you're in second and long, third and long, it's hard to be really productive as an offense when you have a defense like they have on the Pittsburgh side. You got to be honest, they were a really good defense, so you can't give them anything. So I thought in this ball game you hurt yourselves with opportunities that you could have moved the football. You could have had first downs. You could have, done the thing that you needed to do to change field position or change the landscape of the game, but you hurt yourself. So now you're back in 3rd and 10 plus now. You're 2nd and 12 now instead of, hey, we had a good gain on first down. It was 2nd and 6. Bijan, nice run, gets out 6-7 yards on a run, and now you got to bring it back. So I thought it wasn't advantageous for this offense, and it put a lot of people in a bind. Now, I'll be honest. There are situations in the ball game where I felt as though the receivers should have won. They should have created more separation, and it just felt like there wasn't as much separation throughout the ball game that you would like. And like you mentioned, there's a lot of optimism. There's a lot of promise for this offense, but I think game one, everybody wanted to see that come to fruition.
Right.
We talked about it all offseason. We were all excited about it. We were out here watching them in camp. We seen them throwing it around and guys making plays all over the yard. But I still think the fact that you were able to get Bijan Robinson in space, 23 opportunities in this ballgame, 18 carries, 5 catches, that's got to be a staple of your offense.
Yep.
One thing I do want to see more of, I want to see more of Tyler Algier. I think he had 3 carries in the ballgame. He has to be a bigger part of it. There were times where they both were on the field. You like that and have opportunities. But I think there are chances where if he has a bigger output in the ballgame, I think it works out better. Now, of course, the situations of the game didn't dictate as much, where you're in longer situations, so you can't hand the ball off as much as you want. But when, you look up and Drake has, 5 targets or Kyle has 3 targets, I think you got to find a way to get those guys the football.
You
more.
make 2 great points. I mean, yes, I would agree with Tyler Algier, but I think what you're talking about, their inability to stay on schedule, is what affected that. You get more 3rd and 2s and 3rds and 3s, and I think you get more Tyler Algier on the field, maybe both of them at the same time. The other point that I thought you made was great was getting yourselves open. What is the difference, fellas, in guys like Travis Kelce, like Devontae Adams, like Justin Jefferson, like Tyreek Hill? Okay, I understand Tyreek Hill might be different because he's got blazing speed, okay? But these guys, even though every single defense knows where the ball is going to them, they still find a way to get open, right? And I feel like that's probably an area maybe where we need some more growth as well. Like our receivers, our pass catchers need to find more opportunities to show more color, to get themselves more open, and to make a little bit more high percentage throws. We did see 2 interceptions in this game. Chuck and I talked about this at halftime. If it wasn't for Ray-Ray McCloud and his leaping catch over the middle right before halftime, that could have been a 3rd interception. I thought he saved an interception on that ball that got tipped up in the air. Yeah. But his concentration to go up and get it, and knowing he was probably going to take a hit over the middle of the field, he probably saved another turnover. But still, the turnovers, the inability to stay on schedule is going to be tough to operate against that style of defense.
Yeah, 6 of your 9 third down situations were 10+ yards. So that in itself is, especially against that group that likes to rush the passer, is not going to go well for you on the offensive side of the football. This is not one guy either. When you start thinking about, Kirk had a couple of turnovers, but there were, you got to protect better. You got to be able to not commit the penalties that you're talking, hands to the face, holding. Now, I'm still looking for the holding call on Lindstrom. I've looked at the tape 3 different times. I can't find it.
I saw it too, Arch. I was like, there's no holding right there. You might have called the wrong number.
Yeah, I just don't know where the hold was on Lindstrom or whoever else they called.
He really pushed the guy.
Well, they called it on McGarry, but it was supposed to be on Lindstrom. Ultimately, they changed it to Lindstrom, but I didn't see it on Lindstrom either. So I'm not sure where the holding call came. But it got called. It was an untimely penalty, and it put you behind the chains. The opening drive, you move the ball down the field. You show a lot of different packages, a lot of different guys in the game, and you get a negative play. Caleb McGarry overreaches on the stretch play. T.J. Watt knifes inside, tackles Bijan Robinson for a 3-yard loss. Now you're behind the chains, and now you're behind the chains in that tight area down in the red zone, and things shrink down there to where you don't have a lot of room. The play on 3rd down is going to be a touchdown, but the young linebacker makes a play and makes a tackle. And that's something that stuck out to me. I don't know that I've seen a better tackling performance by a defense than Pittsburgh's tackling performance. We didn't break any tackles in the game.
Especially in week 1, Arch. Yeah, that's when you're supposed to miss tackles.
Yeah, it was
early in the season.
Yeah, exactly. It was phenomenal. I thought there was as good a tackling performance by a defense as I've seen. I would echo the fact of separation from receivers, and that's about being sharp on your routes, and especially in this game when you wanted to use quick game. I've got to be really sharp. If I'm running a slant route, I've got to make the guy think I'm breaking out. I got to make the guy think I'm going to run by him, and then that top of the route's got to be a sharp break. I can't roll into the route, which creates the window for a defender to get in and knock the ball away. Those are some of the things that can help Kirk and clear up things for Kirk so the ball can come out on time. I never thought he looked comfortable in the game. I thought that Pittsburgh was a major contributor to that because they got around him. And I can tell you, when you're in the pocket, when you're in the pocket and it shrinks down to where you don't feel like you can get your arm in the play. You talked about Ray McLeod. His arm gets hit and the ball flutters out. Ray makes a great play on the ball, and that was the play that maybe it spurred that drive to go down and throw the touchdown to Kyle Pitts there. But there were a lot of things that went on in the game. Now, the biggest thing that I'm sure the fans listening out there is saying, can we clean it up?
Yeah.
Can it be better? I think Kirk will be better because I think there's some, in all honesty, I think there was some rustiness. I think that there's no question. He hadn't played, since the mid of the season last year. He hadn't thrown double-digit interceptions since week 2 of 2022. Mm-hmm. That was the last time he threw 2 interceptions in the same game.
Yeah.
This is still a good player. He's going to be a good player. He'll be better this week. But the people around him, sharp routes, block people, make people miss, break tackles, those are the kind of things you need to get done. We saw at Pittsburgh do some of that. We saw a big play by George Pickens, a couple of those plays. We saw the opportunity, Najee Harris, how many tackles did he break in the run game?
Guy runs hard.
So there's some things there, and there's also some things you're going to have to do from a game plan standpoint to help with protection. And I would be surprised if you don't see him move Kirk a little bit more, maybe change his launch point so they can't tee off and get after him. So there's a lot of things that can happen from coaching staff to players that'll make this offensive unit much better on Monday night.
Yeah, so a lot of improvement needed to be made between week 1 and week 2. Guys, going into the game, I don't know about you, but I had 3 keys to the game. To me, it was establish the run on offense, and I thought it was okay. 89 yards rushing. I think it can be better when you have one of the most electric running backs in the league. But again, got off schedule, and you probably had to throw more than you wanted to. Number 2, I said, was to control T.J. Watt. I felt like T.J. Watt affected the game on occasions.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So that you're going to have games like that when you play against somebody that is that good, and you have to control him. And T.J. Watt, he's got the ability, he's got the smarts to take chances. On the one play that he knifed inside for the tackle for loss, I'm not sure that was the call. Yeah. But T.J.'s got the ability to do stuff like that because he's so good, right? So you can't overstep a really good defensive end and pass rusher like that. And then the other one was get takeaways on defense. We got a takeaway, but we still ended up losing the turnover margin. So we kind of lost 2 out of my three keys, and they ended up losing the game.
Yeah, one of the keys for me in the game, and we can talk about red zone efficiency and third down efficiency, and obviously takeaways is number 1 for any coach is going to say that's one of the keys. There's no question. My key to the game was carry what you'd been doing in practice to the game. Yeah. Because you hadn't played in a regular – you hadn't played in the offense and defense, this was their first time to be on the field together. And so you went into the game with everybody healthy, but you had to carry what you've been doing out here, and that's extended over not thud tempo where you come off collision and then we ease off. Mm-hmm. It's 4 or 5 seconds on a play where you're going all out. Yeah. And it's also an adrenaline sapper. So how much energy do you have and how much can you maintain? And certainly the defense in holding the rope was a key deal. 35 and a half minutes for them to continue to play at the highest possible level, knowing, like I said, they didn't have their game lungs and all that kind of stuff was pretty critical.
I think one point that Arch just made, I think is going to be super critical for the next game. And you're talking about you watch the film, you see things, and you say, okay, how can we make adjustments? One adjustment that is probably pretty clear and that Arch just mentioned is being able to move Kirk, being able to get him off that launch point. Think about how many times in that ball game you try to run stretch away from Watt and he runs it down from the backside. Mm-hmm. If he has any threat of Kirk coming out the backside of that, maybe he hesitates a little bit more. He doesn't run 3 or 4 of those plays down. So I think you turn the tape on, you say, okay, well, maybe next time we can implement some of this into the game plan. And then there's one adjustment that you can make going in knowing that, okay, Philadelphia's just going to watch this tape, and they're going to see, all right, no bootlegs, no nakeds coming out of there. Maybe we can run it down, too. You come into this ballgame next on Monday night and say, you know what, let's find ways to kind of counter if they have that guy over there who it has the speed to run something down from the backside. All right, now we're going to pull Kirk out of the backside. Maybe we got something coming back the other way that controls that guy a little bit more. So now we don't have that extra hat coming down to run down to play from the backside.
Be interesting too, and I think it was there might have been a couple more snaps, but there was one moment where Tyler had a really good run, but he and Bijan were in the backfield at the same time. and Zach motioned Bijan across the formation out to the right, and eyes went with him. If you looked from an end zone copy, they slid, and then Tyler gashed him left side. Yeah. You wonder, as this thing expands, and there's a whole bunch of stuff on the whiteboard in Zach's office that he's going to get to and try to design for this group to be better this Monday night. You wonder if maybe that package might accelerate itself a little bit to have those guys both on the field at the same time.
The interesting part about that play, I know exactly what Art's talking about, and because of that little motion, the linebackers bump just enough, and you see Dahlman have a double team and gets up on that linebacker that usually would probably be in that spot. So now you got first level occupied, second level occupied, and the first count he gets to, you got the receiver out there blocking the corner, and he gashed him for 13, 14 yards on the play. So good call on that one.
Created some angles, yeah.
That's one of the benefits that this offense and this team is going to have with Bijan Robinson, especially as he grows and matures more as a player, is, yes, obviously getting the football in his hands, but sometimes strategically using him as a decoy to help everybody else on this offense, whether it's Tyler or whether it's Kirk throwing the football to open up some lanes, because, as you mentioned, he's going to draw so much attention when he moves across the formation. Before we move on to Philadelphia, guys, let's talk one more kind of positive thing. I know it's tough to pull positive out when it comes after a loss, because listen, we're all here. Everybody is here to win football games. You can talk about rah-rah as much as you want, but people are here to win football games. But it was very good, DJ, to see 197 back in the lineup. Grady Jarrett healthy again and making an impact in the game. The passion, the energy, the relentless effort that he plays with, his ability to be able to move up and down that line of scrimmage. I mean, there's one time he's, when the sack with Judon on the right side, he's actually playing a wide 9 technique. I mean, he can do everything you want. And the thing that stands out to me is we've talked about how Grady is the face of this organization. When you turn on the tape, there's a standard that he plays to. And if you're on the field with him and if you're not playing to that standard, it's going to be seen widely because you don't want to get off. You're not going to play to the same speed. So I think the fact that when Grady shows up and he plays to the level that he has for his entire 10-year career, he sets the standard of how a guy on that side of the ball should play. And then for the other part of it is, as we've seen it, you turn that tape on, and the next opponent's going to say, you know what? I got to bring it this week because this dude ain't going to stop. He's going to bring it for 4 quarters. Yep. And now it's going both ways. Your teammates see this guy's coming off an ACL. This guy's worked his tail off to get back, and now he's in his 10th year, and now this guy's running all over the field, running down plays, running down George Pickens on a reverse. Like, the dude is getting it done, and it's an unbelievable sight to see him. We were running some of the highlights on our show after the game, and we use the sound from the game, and all we hear is, "You shall not pass," and it just rings loud. It makes you smile because you're like, yes, that's the dude that you want. That's the dude that should be a part of it. And it's great to have Grady back, but just the way he plays, I think it is a huge advantage because it forces everybody around you to play up to his level, and if we can get everybody playing to that style, it's going to be tough. Arch, I know you missed saying that last year, right?
Yeah, I definitely did the last half of the season. There's no question about it. It was fun. Wes gave me the line. When Grady broke through and was able to get that solo sack, I came resoundingly with "You shall not pass." Yes. And it was fun to do. I had a big grin on my face on the play. I'm sure that everybody in the stands did too. Here's the other element that I thought Grady brought. Obviously the play, the passion, the work ethic, the relentlessness that he brings to the table. Pittsburgh tried to impart their will on Atlanta. They tried to play bully ball in the game at some point, and Grady was having none of it, to the point where he got into some shoving matches from their offensive linemen, and I thought we didn't necessarily take the game over from a physicality standpoint, but Pittsburgh didn't either. And I thought that was a key moment and key part of this game when you start talking about putting on the tape, does Atlanta get pushed around? Well, Grady was saying, not in my house, and certainly not with this team. I thought Grady helped establish maybe an identity that they're certainly going to have to prove it every weekend they step out on the field. But there was a moment there where I thought Grady was the figurehead in saying, we're as tough as you are, we're as physical as you are, and this is going to be an all-day fight. Yeah. We might not win, but you're going to know you played us. And I thought that was a key moment or key part of the game that I think carries forward for the next 16 games.
Yep, I agree with you. He's like, look, y'all want to try to run it on us? Well, we going to be here. And we going to bring it.
Ain't gonna be no
And we going to be ready for you.
Yeah, right.
All right, speaking of being ready, going to have to be ready for the first primetime matchup of the 2024 season. Unfortunately, Atlanta did not get any primetime games, but you only had to wait until week 2 in the 2024 season to get a primetime matchup. As Atlanta travels to Philadelphia to play the Eagles, they're coming off the win, of course, on Friday in Brazil, 34-29. Team looks a little bit different, a little bit the same as they have in years past. I'm going to come to you, Arch. He had a good game by Jalen Hurts, 278 yards passing, a couple of touchdowns, did throw a couple of interceptions, but maybe the most notable is Saquon Barkley changing uniforms within the same division, ends with over 100 yards rushing, 3 total touchdowns in the game, and it seems like he might be playing with a little bit more of a chip on his shoulder than he did even when he was in New York.
Well, this is a far more talented offensive team than you saw last weekend. No offense to George Pickens. He had a good game and all that kind of stuff. You're talking about potentially 3 number 1 receivers. Johan Dotson comes over from the trade. Yeah. You got Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. The latter 2 combined for 200 yards receiving in their game Friday night down in Brazil. Saquon Barkley over 100 yards rushing. You mentioned the 3 touchdowns, had a receiving touchdown in the game. Jalen Hurts, the interception note is interesting. Now, the first 45 games Jalen Hurts played, he threw 19 interceptions. The last 18 games he's played in, he's thrown 17 interceptions. He threw 2 again Friday night, threw 15 a year ago. So that's starting to creep into this thing a little bit, and it creeps into the psyche of a quarterback a little bit if the other team's in and up with the ball. Now, ultimately, he threw for about 280 yards, so a couple touchdowns, and it leveled itself off. The other piece to Jalen Hurts is this is a guy that will affect the run game in the red zone and on short yardage. He's not necessarily looking to run like Jalen Hurts wants to pull it down and run 50 yards, but he will break off a first down run on you. But his ability to run in the red zone, in the last 3 seasons, he's had double-digit rushing touchdowns each of the last 3 years. I think he had 15 rushing touchdowns last year. So he's a dramatic effect, has a dramatic effect down in the red zone. Defensively, they've got a bunch of different guys. This is a team in 22 that had 70 sacks that went to the Super Bowl. Last year they had 43 sacks, which was just below the middle part of the league. They've changed a lot of guys. Fletcher Cox is gone. Javon Hodgrove's gone. Hassan Reddick's gone. It's a new group. Zach Bond stepped in, had 15 tackles and 2 sacks in the game on Friday night. So this is a younger, maybe more athletic group than they had before, but they do get after you. And of course, there's a bunch of Georgia Bulldogs on this team. So this is like Clemson South versus Georgia North, I think, when it comes to this game.
Did I see a picture on social media, DJ, of from the game, the Packers and the Eagles game, and there was like 9,
8 to 10 guys,
8 or 9 Georgia Bulldogs between the 2 teams that were all out there. It must be nice, by the way. We did talk about that a little bit last week. DJ, I don't want to point you in any direction. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Arch said. In my opinion, arguably the best short yardage team in the National Football League right now. Yeah. Obviously the tush push, but Jalen Hurts' ability to pick up first downs on 3rd and 4th and short is, to me, second to none. I mean, Tom Brady kind of became one of the better quarterbacks, sneak quarterbacks in his heyday. I think the Eagles have kind of taken that over. And we just talked about the 3rd down conversions for Pittsburgh last week. It's going to have to be another area of focus in this game Monday night.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I went back and looked at some of the numbers for this game. Green Bay was 3 of 11 on 3rd down, forced 3 turnovers. They averaged 7 yards a play, and they were 1 for 4 in the red zone. So you talk about winning situational football, 3rd down, red zone. Last week we weren't good on 3rd down. Red zone, obviously, we got there one time and was able to kick a field goal.
But that tells me they moved it and threatened. Yeah. And Philly's been as good a red zone defense over the last 4 or 5 years, maybe even further back than that, as good as it gets on red zone defense.
And here's the other part of it. Green Bay ran the ball well, though. 163 yards on the ground on 21 carries. That tells you there's something there. Yep. You talked about how athletic this bunch is, and there's a lot of guys on there who are, finally moving into these different roles. Well, this is still going to be a defense that is gettable. Like Arch just mentioned, there are going to be plays that can be made on the outside for this offense, and I think you're going to see a new couple wrinkles in this ball game that allows you to have an advantage against this defense that's going to be active. It's going to be you got a rookie on the back end, Quinyon Mitchell, who's a really good player, but again, he's a younger player who you got to be cognizant of. Dallas Goedert as well added to that crew on the other side. I mean, you got a pretty good tight end who can get it going. But this is, I think, an offense that with Saquon Barkley, with Jalen Hurts, you just mentioned, the ability to be able to be good on early down situations. I think the Falcons have to be really good because you're talking about being able to establish that physicality up front. That's what they're going to want to do. This is an offense that, yeah, they're going to take their shots down the field, but they also know we don't want to put Jalen Hurts in those situations where he can possibly throw us a football on 3rd and long. They want to make sure they ball control it, but then also here's Devontae Smith over the top. Here's A.J. Brown underneath it, and he can go over the top as well. So there are going to be opportunities that you got to be wary of when it comes to this offense.
Unfortunately, at home last week, Atlanta had to play with a little bit of a silent count because of Pittsburgh and how well they travel. Arch, just real quick, this week, how important is it going to be for Atlanta to manage the environment? Because Philadelphia, one of the most difficult places to go, and their fans are not pleasant at all.
Yeah,
they love their Eagles.
No, that's true. Any group that boos Santa Claus certainly has a problem. And that happened in Philly, no question about it. I spent some time up there. So, the environment to link is a good one if you're the home team. Certainly is tough for the opposing team, but this is not any different, and this is not a bunch of guys that just fell off the turnip wagon, right? This is a group of guys that have been in different places and played in different places. In fact, you even had a few Steeler fans in the building that created. And I don't think – and anybody that said that there was – and I kept hearing that there were half the fan was Pittsburgh Steelers. That's not true. It was probably 70-30, 75-25, something like that. But so congratulations to the Atlanta fan because I think the environment in Mercedes-Benz Stadium was outstanding. We didn't hold up our end of the bargain as a team, get the win. Hopefully we can take care of business this weekend on Monday night, and we can have the noise again on a Sunday night against Patrick Mahomes.
Talking about the environment, I know fans would love to see. They say Arch was doing it in the booth, doing the Soldier Boy when Soldier Boy was up right there after the third quarter.
He was right next to us.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was trying to get it.
I already know. My dude was in there getting it in.
We were trying to do our halftime show, and I thought everybody was there looking at us.
No doubt.
Soldier Boy was standing right over there.
Soldier Boy talent. That's what they said.
All right, so 8:15 Eastern Time on ESPN Monday night. You can catch the game. Go ahead.
Real quickly, let's give the fan a key for you really early. So we're recording this on a Tuesday. You might get it on wherever you see it on maybe a Wednesday or something like that. Give me a quick key that in your guys' minds against Philly. Maybe something we change in one of the units. And by the way, real quickly, special teams I thought was outstanding this weekend for Atlanta. Had a couple punt returns that we lost leverage on, but we had a couple of breakout returns. Ray McLeod averaged almost, 28 yards a return on two returns. And Avery Williams, I thought he was gone on one punt return. So that looked really good. Marquise Williams' group, I thought, really performed pretty well in the special teams category.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And in the special teams guys actually not going to take special teams for a key in this game. I'm going to go with something that you said in the Pittsburgh game is limiting explosive plays on defense because they have the personnel to do it. Between the wide receivers and the running back, they can rip off explosive plays if you're not playing gap sound, playing really tough defense, and everybody's communicating it on the same page.
I think it's simple. You got to win a turnover battle on the road versus a team like this. You have to win the turnover battle if you're going to win this ball game, because if you give them other opportunities, one, they can control the clock with the way they go about their offense, but then also you don't want to be giving them extra possessions in this ball game. So you got to win that turnover battle.
Well, and I told you, Hurts has been throwing the ball to the other team. Last 18 games, 17 turnovers, 2 on Friday night down in Brazil. I'm going to talk about making your quarterback comfortable. We've got to find a way to get Kirk comfortable in the game, and that might be moving him off his launch point, getting him some different angles where Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and some of these guys, Braun, don't have exactly where he's going to be. I think that will be in the offing in this game.
So there you go. As we record here on a Tuesday, you already got 3 keys to the game. That's going to happen 6 days from now. And guess what? We'll have a whole lot more preview on all the different Falcons channels here leading up to the game. You're going to get a pregame show from Arch on the radio. You'll get a pregame show from us here on digital media at AtlantaFalcons.com. And as I mentioned, you can watch the game at 8:15 Eastern Time on ESPN. Make sure you like, subscribe, review, Spotify, iTunes, AtlantaFalcons.com, and YouTube. This has been the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T.
Falcons over Eagles. Let's go.
Let's go. That's Shock. That's Arch. I'm Rack. Next time.